Dialogs in Android are descendants of the dialog base class, but you don't usually create them in your app by subclassing the dialog base class. Typically, what you do is create a class that extends the dialog fragment class to act as a container for your dialog, and then you override the onCreateDialog method to return a new dialog object. The dialog that this function returns is usually an instance of an alert dialog base class, or a date picker dialog, or a time picker dialog. The alert dialog base class provides a generic dialog structure that can contain a set of buttons, a list of selectable items, or a custom layout. The date picker and time picker dialogs do what their name implies, which is to allow users to select date and times. For our first example, we'll create a simple dialog that displays a set of buttons. So let's jump over to Android Studio and build that. In Android Studio, open the dialog activity Java file. And if we scroll down, you'll see that I have some code here that sets up handlers for the UI controls. And we can see that this button triggers a function called showSimpleDialog. And if we scroll down, we'll see that showSimpleDialog is right here. The showSimpleDialog function creates a simple dialog fragment and then calls the show function on that fragment to display the dialog. So let's open the simple dialog fragment code, which is in the dialogs folder, and it's this class right here. Notice also that I'm using the dialog fragment base class that's in the support library. There is a version of the dialog fragment that ships with the Android framework, but I'm using the support version in order to get support for older versions of Android. All right, so my simple dialog fragment code extends the dialog fragment base class. So to create the dialog, our code overrides the onCreateDialog function. So inside that function, I'll build an instance of the alert dialog builder class. And I'll pass in the parent activity to serve as the parent of the dialog. Then I will set some dialog properties, such as the dialog title, as well as the message that the dialog is going to display. So I'll write builder.setTitle. And we'll ask the user what their P's preference is. So we'll write builder.setMessage. Do you like sugar snap peas? Okay, so now I need to add some buttons to the dialog. Dialogs can have up to 3 buttons, and each button indicates a response from the user: a positive response, a negative response, and a neutral response. So to add these buttons, I use the corresponding API for each one. So what we're going to do is say builder.setPositiveButton, and the button will say sure. And then I'll create a new dialog interface dot on click listener. And inside the onClick listener, I'm going to override the onClick function. And that takes a dialog interface object along with which button was clicked. And what I'm going to do is just simply log out a message that the positive button was clicked. And that's all I need to do for the positive button. Now, I need to do the same thing for the negative and neutral buttons. So to make that simple, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this code and paste it and change this to set negative button. And the negative answer will be no way. And I'll change this to negative. And then I'll paste it one more time. And in this case, we'll use the set neutral button. And then the neutral button will just simply say not sure. And the message will be neutral button was clicked. All right. Finally, we need to construct the finished dialog and return it using the build function. So what I'm going to do here is, instead of returning null, I'm going to return builder.create, and that's going to create my dialog. And in addition to the buttons, I'm also going to listen for when the user cancels the dialog. A user can tap outside of the dialog area on the screen to cancel the dialog action. So in order to listen for this, the code needs to override the onCancel method of the dialog fragment. So I'll write that here. And inside the onCancel method, I first need to call the superclass. So I'll write super.onCancel. And then I'll just log a message that dialog was canceled. All right. So let's just run what we have so far. I'll go ahead and build this and bring it up in the emulator. When the app comes up in the emulator, let's go ahead and start the dialog activity, and let's show the simple dialog. And here you can see the dialog's title, which is P's preference, along with the top level message that was set in the code, and each of the buttons. So here's the positive button, here's the negative button, and here's the neutral button all the way over here. So when I click the button, you can see that the dialog was dismissed. And if I jump over to the monitor, you can see right there that positive button was clicked. So let's go ahead and try it one more time. I'll show the dialog. This time I'll click on the neutral button, and you can see the message there that the neutral button was clicked. And if I cancel the dialog, so if I tap outside the dialog, you'll see that the dialog was canceled. So I didn't choose any of the buttons. Now, in some cases, you might not want the user to be able to cancel the dialog. You might want to have to force them to choose an option that's in the dialog. So to do this, you can use the setCancelable method to indicate that the user has to interact with the dialog. So let's make that change in our code. So over here, in the activity where the dialog is created, I'm going to call simple dialog.setCancelable, and I'm going to pass false to indicate that this dialog cannot be canceled by the user. So let's go ahead and update the app and run it again. All right, so the app has come back up. Let's go ahead and display the dialog. And now you notice that when I tap outside the dialog does not go away. So it is now no longer possible to cancel the dialog. I now have to choose one of the options.